Ronnie Ann stood several steps away from the front doors of the school, waiting for her next target to appear. Her backpack was full and slung over one of her shoulders. Most of the students had already walked home or got on the bus, including Rusty, Liam, and Zach. She was currently waiting to text back and forth with Clyde, who was taking a jittery Lincoln to his house. Ronnie Ann, I know what that you looked at lunch earlier can only mean trouble. What are you thinking of? Clyde, when Lynn comes out, I'm going to interrogate her. Ronnie Ann, okay, but why Lynn? Do you want to get suspended again? Why can't you just ask one of his other sisters? Clyde, nice to hear that you care. I'm not going to get suspended for this. I mean, school's over, right? Can't punish me if it's not on school grounds. Ronnie Ann, that didn't answer my question. Clyde, alright, alright. Lincoln's twin sisters and Lucy might be too scared to talk, but knowing Lynn, she would be easy to crack. Ronnie Ann, and what if she doesn't? Clyde, well, I tried asking nicely. Ronnie Ann, Ronnie Ann, I know you beat Lynn last time and almost broke her arm, but I really do think you should consider what you're doing. Lynn does a lot of sports and I think she knows how to do martial arts. Clyde, well, all those sports and training didn't help her now, did it? Ronnie Ann, now with Lincoln Protection Protocol, as a certain user dubbed, now underway, the white-haired child's social circle was actively trying to keep Lincoln's stress down. To him, school felt like it was a death trap, with the possibility of his sisters waiting for him around every corner. The fact that he needed to make this due to the academic obligations for 4 more days gone at his psyche even more. After lunch, the boys walked with Lincoln to their next class, screening the halls for any of the Loud sisters that would alert the others if they spotted one, or think they did. It was almost reminiscent of the POTUS secret device service detail, though Rusty and Zach may have been a little over exaggerating with their approach. They kept going over the halls and one place to another, like they were spies sneaking out into a heavy fortified area. If this keeps up, the two would land themselves in the Genius Book of Rule World Records for the amount of times they've been called weirdos in a single day. Ronnie Ann would surely be contribute to that if she didn't have to walk to a different section of the school for her next class. After being the company of one of his friends, hence for the last few hours, did put Lincoln at ease, but only a little. One final bell had rung. He was finally ready to jump out of his seat and dash for his locker. After Lincoln and Clyde grabbed whatever books they needed for homework, the duo briskly walked out of the school to minimize the chance of running into the Loud sisters. They even took an alternative route home as their usual trip also led to the Loud house. The sound of two heavy doors opening and closing had been going on repetitively for the past 5 minutes. The Hispanic girl casually looked up and scanned among the crowd, falling apart to sport to any of the Louds, but giving a frustrated and focused sigh as she went back to her phone. If it makes you any better, they might have already left. Not like I had any plans to march over to their house. Ronnie Ann, like a wise man once said, don't go looking for trouble if trouble isn't looking for you. Clyde, who said that? Your therapist? Ronnie Ann, no, first off, my therapist is female, and second, that is an Aesop. Clyde. The buses began to pull away from the lot, tossing up dust and smoke. Ronnie Ann coughed a little before covering her nose and mouth with her shirt, glaring irritably at the transport wagons. The girl laminated on how she could have been picking a better waiting spot. Eyeing at the benches of the school, however, she would have easily spotted the girl's might to avoid her. The last bus pulled away. Fading engine noises were replaced by birds singing. The only students that remained in those who had carpooled to school, but they would too soon leave to another boring school day behind them. Glancing at her phone, it had been almost 15 minutes since school ended. Still no sign of Lynn. Ronnie Ann gave a frustrated sigh. Dang it, they probably left in the middle of the crowd. The front doors moved again, drawing the 11-year-old's attention. They edged out only a little, as if someone was peeking through the crack. Do you see them out there? a younger tomboyish voice said. No, just a few other students, a monotone voice replied. Ronnie Ann recognized Lucy's emotionless and dark-toned voice anywhere, but she put her phone away before scooting back several feet not to be noticed once they stepped out. Right after she moved away, Lucy, the twins, Lynn, and Luann stepped out of the building, intent on getting home as quick as possible. Aside from the change of clothing that had been forced upon them, Ronnie Ann also noticed Lola had for some reason had her hair shortened quite a lot today. She probably would have mistaken her for Lana had the tomboyish twin had not been wearing the signature red cap. Ronnie Ann furrowed her brows in thought. This would be rather harder than she anticipated. Seeing that Lynn was in the group and that she had one of her older sisters with her. However, one key aspect everyone knew about Ronnie Ann was that she was stubborn, and what she had a goal set in place. The only person who could stop her was her own mother, probably Bobby, maybe. She wasn't about to let this opportunity slip past her, and Ronnie Ann wasn't sure if she'd ever get this chance again. Taking note of their direction, the tomboy took a shortcut to head them off. Lola studied her hair in a small mirror she carried. I already said like this before. I am still surprised on someone who is gross and dirty all the time knows how to properly cut hair. After having the nasty gum out, Lola expected Lana to do something horrible to her due to it, but instead, it looked like she had her recent visit to the salon. Cut from the mid-back length, the girly twin hair rested evenly around her shoulders. No split ends or anything that would demean her appearance. Well, when you have someone who's been obsessed with being clean and pretty, you learn a few things. You know, half the class thought I was you for a moment, Lola grumbled. Nah, I saw those way boys passing looking over you, all red in the face and whatnot. Besides, I'm keeping my pigtails. Lana pushed one of her locks up the feminine way. I think it'd be scary seeing you act like a proper lady than me acting like a pig, the younger twin stated. You know who would be more scary than acting like a lady? Luann asked. Who? Lucy piped up. Lynn, the comedian chuckled. Lynn gave a small glare at the 14-year-old. Very funny, she scoffed, earning a few giggles from the rest. It was a good joke. A new familiar voice cut in. Looking behind them, the loud siblings saw Ronnie Ann lean against a telephone pole, fidgeting with her phone. Lynn let out an exasperated groan. Last thing she needed to do was deal with Lincoln's still peed-off girlfriend. What do you want, Ronnie Ann? Oh, the Hispanic girl put her phone in her pocket. Just want to get a few answers from you. She glanced over at the other girls. Alone? Lynn folded her arms, her gaze hardening at the fifth grader. Oh, really? You hardly say a word to me in over 2 weeks, and to tell me to go fuck myself whenever we pass the hall, and all of a sudden you're asking to talk? Ronnie Ann pushed herself off the pole, calmly strolling towards Lynn. I wasn't asking. Well, whatever. You want to stay? You could say it right in front of my face and my sister's, because I ain't going nowhere, the jock finally stated firmly, walking towards the advisory. Look, girls, let's not start any... Not now, Luann, Lynn barked, not even turning to address her sister. The two girls were now a few inches apart, sizing up each other. Lynn found this to be pointless, though. While she was only slightly taller than Lincoln, the height difference was noticeably between herself and Ronnie Ann. The top of her head only came up to the brunette's eye level, and it was just a bit comical to see Ronnie Ann trying to make herself appear intimidating. But she was unaware that she was poking a lion this time. Lynn wasn't going to let herself be dragged into another bare-knuckle brawl. If she needed to, she put Ronnie Ann down without a second thought. No one said anything for a moment. The only sounds was the wind whistling, and past their ears was filling the void. Hearing that Lincoln was completely afraid of you, Ronnie Ann started. Figures she'd want to talk about that. Lynn gave a low snort. Yeah, what else is new? So what did you do to him? What do you mean, what did I do to him? Link developed that phobia on his own. Ronnie Ann curled her hands into fists. Yeah, right, it's one thing to beat your own brother down, but putting that fear, making him think that you'll beat him up again, You guys must have really done something to him while he was in the hospital. Lynn gave a low growl through her gritted teeth, making Ronnie Ann give a small smirk upon seeing the missing gaps at the jock's mouth. All we did was visit him once. He flipped out on us because he thinks we're going to hurt him again. All we want is nothing to do but to tell him we're sorry and we are hope that he comes home. It's true, we even made a cake for him for his last visit, Lucy added. Well, clearly something went wrong. The Hispanic girl moved her hands to her hips. What did you do? Throw the cake at his face? Try to force it to feed it to him? I wouldn't be surprised given how you bullied him before. What? Lynn's voice was barely above whisper, as that sentence was fully registered in her brain. Coming out of all of a sudden shock, the jock balled her fists, and she shook uncontrollably, coming over closer to the crushing young little girl in front of her in the pavement. You're the one to talk about bullying. Seeing that's exactly what you did to Lincoln before I put an end to it, she spat, sending small trickles of saliva at Ronnie Ann's face. The 11-year-old flinched a little, seeing Lynn was almost ready to blow her top, but she wasn't going to back down. Yes, it was. She wiped her face clean. But the main difference is that, 1, I actually liked Lincoln, and 2, took some bad advice. Plus, what I did was a bunch of pranks. What you did was just barbaric. And all he wanted to do was help you. She prodded Lynn's chest with her finger. And you sent him to the hospital over what? Who does that? How could you ever even start it in the first place? It was over a dress, Luann stated. The Hispanic girl's glare disappeared with an instant. Her mouth slung open, thinking she heard Luann wrong. A dress? Lynn nodded. Lori and Lenny had a fighting over getting the same dress, so we tried to keep them separated until they cool off. We didn't tell Lincoln about the protocol we were using, and everything fell into pieces because he tried to solve it but failed. Ronnie Ann then held her disbelief for a moment, before erupted into a fit of laughter, much to the confusion of everyone else. What's so funny? Lola asked. Ronnie Ann held her sides as she continued to laugh. You guys! She took a moment to regulate her breathing. I thought it might have been over something serious, but a dress? No wonder you guys are so stupid. All the louds glared at Ronnie Ann. Excuse me? Lynn spoke, her tone becoming saturated with venom. Let me guess. The 11-year-old finally stopped, regained her cold demeanor. He thought it would be pretty stupid to try to solve it immediately, but you morons just wanted to uphold whatever dumb system you had in the first place. So Link probably got sick and tired of it, and harder, but even he failed and he tried to go to Clyde's house for a bit. Wait, how do you... Lana started. Clyde told me, Ronnie answered. So he probably came back later and tried to solve it again, but at that point all of you had enough and it was all Lincoln's fault. Let's teach him a lesson so he won't interfere with our petty BS. She folded her arms. Am I right or am I wrong? Lynn stared at the ground in guilt. No, but what? Ronnie Ann wrapped her fingers around her arm. For all I know, you probably all threatened to never tell him or anyone else, or you'll break the rest of his ribs. The 13-year-old felt herself losing it again. You better shut up, Ronnie Ann, the jock warned, clenching and unclenching her hands. The other sisters were about to step in, but soon decided against it, seeing how much Lynn's temper was rising. So what else did you threaten him over in the past? A car seat? The talk taking the last of your food? A trip to the store gone wrong? Or something else that was pity? You might have been blamed him for losing a game for all I know, Ronnie Ann continued, obvious of deteriorating temperament of the 13-year-old. Just shut up, Lynn yelled, her voice cracking as her face became faint red. She repeatedly took breaths to try and keep herself composed, but however, steam visibly blowing out of her nostrils with each exhale. Luann grew worried. Dropping her backpack to the ground, she felt her sister was about to go ballistic. Heck, that might be why you always pick him as your partner for whenever you train for sports. Given what he's told me a long time ago, he's weak. In reality, he's just a target practice for you and an easy win. I may have picked on Lincoln in the past, but at least I didn't physically abuse him whenever I had the chance. Lynn's pupils shrank after the last sentence. Ronnie Ann had no idea how close to home the accusation was. It was the same problem Lynn had accused herself of doing before she talked to Dr. Lopez. She didn't pick on Lincoln just because she felt like it. She just wanted to see her brother grow into a strong man she knows he can be. The brunette was still trying to convince herself that that was the case. But the fact that Ronnie Ann was trying to denounce this made Lynn's blood boil. Her brain sent ripples of anger throughout her entire body and directed the nerves to her right arm to prepare for physical contact. It was at this point that Ronnie Ann finally noticed the look of murderous intent that Lynn was giving her. Nervousness took over the 11-year-old and realized she probably said too much. Before the Hispanic girl could react, Lynn's fist was already pocketing towards her. Ronnie Ann's vision wiped out as the jaw hand collided with her forehead, sending her flying back several feet. The 11-year-old landed on the upper back, flipping over until she was lying on her stomach. Her backpack slipped off during the roll, only lying just a step away. She didn't even get too much as a whimper out before her vision faded to black. Lynn breathed heavily. Her muscles tensed as she held her fist out where it impacted Ronnie Ann. The other girls stood there holding their mouths agape, their brains catching up to what happened. They were brought back into reality when Lola finally screamed, "Lynn, you killed her!" The 6-year-old panicked. Lucy walked over and sprawled at the tomboy, putting 2 fingers against Ronnie Ann's neck. She gave a small sigh of relief when the skin pulsated in her digits. "She's not dead, just knocked out." "Oh!" Lola regained her composure, placing her hands on her hips. "She'll be fine then." Lynn finally simmered down enough, looking at her hand. The knuckles were a little red from the blunt force applied, along with how uncomfortable it finally set to close her fingers, seeing Ronnie Ann on the ground. The sports fanatic finally realized what she did, gripping the strands of hair in panic. "Oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap," she then muttered repeatedly as she sank to her knees. Luann knelt down next to her, rubbing her back as a means of comfort. I didn't mean to hit her. She just wound me up." "Lynn, she kinda had it coming. Ronnie Ann has a right to be mad, but I think she was going a little overboard with what she was saying to us. We would never threaten Lincoln like that." Lola grabbed their attention. "We already felt bad enough that he was in the hospital. Why should we make it worse? Oh wait, it got worse when we weren't even around him." Lynn shifted her attention from the girly twin to Lucy. "How bad is it?" Lucy lifted Ronnie Ann's head. Aside from the few scrapes here and there, it was due to the roll. She didn't look too bad. Just a mild concussion. Aside from the bruise that's forming on her forehead, she'll live. Lana then strolled up to get a better look. "Yeah, that's going to be swelled pretty hard, so we'll just have to leave her like this, or we can't just leave her there. Then she'll think she was right about us," Lynn protested, standing up. "We gotta take her home." Luann then looked at Lynn questioningly before getting up to her feet. "Her home? What would her mother say if she saw us with her like that?" "Not her house, ours," the Jacques corrected. "And what happens when she wakes up?" the tomboyish twin pointed out, poking Ronnie Ann with a stick. "Look, I'll deal with her, okay? But just don't tell anyone else I knocked her out." Lynn grabbed the unconscious girl gingerly and placed her over her shoulders. Then she grabbed the 11-year-old's bag before walking into the direction of the house. The others were unsure about this, but decided to let Ronnie Ann Lynn do her thing. After all that the girls learned, it was better to fix the problems as soon as they start than to fester into something worse. Ronnie Ann's eyes moved around behind closed her eyelids as she started to get her senses back in order. The first thing she noticed was a cold sensation on her forehead, followed by what sounded like someone talking. Squinting her eyes a little, she opened around them slowly, finding herself staring at the ceiling. She moved her head left and right a little, noticing that she was lying on the couch appeared to be a living room. At first she thought that she might be at home, but upon looking at the floor, she realized that it wasn't her house. Lily was on the floor playing with one of her baby toys. She also saw that her backpack and shoes were by the front door. That cold feeling made it noticeable again, making the girl put a hand up to her forehead. The first thing she felt was some medical wrapping tape, followed by a thick object that was pressed to her head. Few questions arose. How did she end up in the loud house? What happened to her head? How long had she been out? Ronnie Ann sat up, giving a small groan as she felt her headache coming on. She lifted the bandages just enough to where the skin exposed with open air. Ronnie Ann poked the sensitive area under the wrapping. He immediately wished she hadn't done so. Waves of pain echoed across her head, making the 11-year-old hiss noisily. She then heard a mature feminine voice speaking in the room where a large dinner table sat. Rita walked past the entryway, holding that phone to her ear. He's had two, Miranda. He had one Saturday night, and Clyde believes that he's had another one just nodding off in class. Are you sure you can't see him sooner? She then paused, and the father spoke on the other line. Friday, but I'm not sure if... All right. Not like we have much of a choice. I just hope Lincoln can wait that long. No, it's fine. Thank you. The monarch ended the call. She walked back to the kitchen, gave a soft glance at the couch before noticing in a wake of Ronnie Ann. Oh good, you're awake. Are you okay? Do you remember your name? How many fingers I'm holding up? Kinda. Ronando on Santiago. And you're holding up two fingers. Ronnie Ann spoke, rubbing her eyes a little. How did I get here, Mrs. L? Lynn said that you weren't looking where you were going and slammed into a pole. She and a few other girls had brought you home since we weren't sure if your parents were home. Lynn? Pole? Ronnie Ann questioned, racking her memories from the last few minutes. She remembered practically yelling at Lynn straight up until the Jacques became livid. After that, all she knew was black and white. With how hard Lynn decked her, she might as well have been the pole at the tomboy. Was unsure if she should be angry at Lynn that knocked her out, or upset that she let it happen. With even more so, she was surprised that even her forehead even took the beating. No injuries to her nose, eyes, or mouth. How long was I out? As I predicted, only 108 minutes, 80 minutes, 3 hours in simple terms, but nothing unusual for a small concussion, Lisa stated as she came downstairs. Mind if I get a look at said injury? Lisa climbed onto the couch as Ronnie Ann let the 4-year-old take the bandages off. Once they were removed, Lisa stared quizzically at the bruise, giving it a few pokes, much to the Hispanic girl's pain. I give it a day or two before this bruise disappears. However, I recommend keeping an ice pack handy for the next few hours. As a pain for medication, I also advise steering away from any land-based telephone lines and traffic poles from now on. Satisfied that Ronnie Ann would be okay, Rita then headed for the kitchen. Once her mother was out of earshot, Lisa continued. Telephone poles? That could be a likely cover story. She reapplied the wrap on the older girl's head. So, you said what to Lynn that made you force you out of conscious? I saw that bruise came from human acceleration. That was not a phony excuse she made up. I think I said that something was a little too personal and didn't pay any attention to how pissed she was getting until it was too late. Ronnie Ann folded her arms, her face flushed with embarrassment. Lisa adjusted her glasses a little. Sounds plausible. Out of all of us, you seem to hold a major grudge against Lynn, which is likely because of that acceleration at the school. So, what is it to you? The 11-year-old spoke defensively. In words Lori would say, you literally needed to not be so hot-headed. Ronnie Ann was about to form a rebuttal when a new voice cut in. Back from the dead, huh? She looking up. All 3 girls saw that Lynn was leaning off the stair railing. Ronnie Ann bit her lip before giving a hard glare at the sports fanatic. Lisa then took this as a cue to leave while Lynn took her spot on the couch. So how do you feel? The brunette started. The dark-haired child gazed at the sofa cushions. In pain, angry, and a little crappy. She then looked back at Lynn. Thanks for knocking me out, by the way. Lynn brushed her sarcasm, looking at the indifference as she folded her arms. Hey, it could be worse. I could have aimed my other plate on the other place besides that big forehead of yours. I'm surprised you didn't try to kill me after I was down. Oh, trust me, Rolanda. In those seconds after I punched you, I wanted to jump on you and cave your face in, but I didn't for two reasons. She lifted a finger. One, you were already down, and consider I put that payback for knocking one of my teeth out, so it was nearly breaking my arm. She lifted her other digit. Two, given how close you are to Lincoln, the 13-year-old retracted her fingers, looking at some of the pictures hanging down the wall. Given how close you are to him, if he saw you in a worse shape than ever now, he may think we did it, and we were the bigger monsters than he already does. I considered it lucky he didn't aim lower, because I just picked a random spot on your face and swung. You mean aside from the monsters you were before this started? Ronnie Ann spat. Lynn bit her lip in frustration. She closed her eyes tight and balled her fist, trying not to let the tomboy's words get under her skin. Last thing she wanted to do was have a repeat of earlier. She took another deep breath through her nostrils and exhaled out of her mouth. Once she was back to being calm, Lynn leaned back onto the couch. Look, Rolanda, you're right, and you probably didn't have any reason to believe in anything myself or my sisters to tell you. The fact that the only sister who's innocent in all of this is right here. She then pointed at Lily, who glanced confusedly at the sudden attention. She's the only sister that we have that Lincoln trusts and is aware of the story that feels all of us feel. Ronnie Ann then shifted her lip a little, wondering where Lynn was going with this. Have I been a bully to Lincoln? In some ways I have. You're right. Maybe at many times I've dragged him into helping me practice or just try to spar, but I don't do that just for the sake of my health. The Hispanic girl then gave a look that told Lynn she wasn't convinced. Okay, I kinda do. I bring Lincoln into it so I could try and toughen him up. She then frowned at the dark-haired girl. I didn't want to wail on him just because I wanted him to fight back. I just wanted him to show me that he could take care of himself. I've had to chase bullies away from him many times while growing up, including you. But there is going to come a time where I won't be there to protect him. So someone is getting up face. I want him to be ready for the smackdown on them. That doesn't explain why you always want to help him with your sports, the 11-year-old countered. Lynn then got up from the couch, grabbed a book off the mantel. She flipped through the pages, stopping when she found what she was looking for. The Jacques sat down next to Ronnie Ann, who looked at the book. It was one of the family photo albums. On the pages it showed young Lincoln and Lynn playing together. One depicted passing a beach ball around the other two toddlers, sharing an ice cream cone, and the other set had them paling around at the park playground. Me and Link used to be very close when we were babies. Over time we grew apart and I started getting more into sports. I thought Lincoln would become interested since he was a boy, but that didn't work like I thought it would. So I kept asking him to help me practice, hoping that it would get eventually into the mix, that we would be like used 2 years ago. My therapist had told me that I had to be patient and let him come to me on his own. I had to let him come willingly instead of just throwing the whole package at him without his approval. She closed the book. Wait, a therapist? Why would someone like you need to shrink? Lynn gave a soft glare at Ronnie Ann. What? You don't think I'm the person who broke the bro's arm out of anger doesn't need to be find out what's wrong with them? Seeing the worded out wrong, the tomboy was quick with the form to reply. No, that's not what I mean. It's just surprising to hear that. The sporty loving sister scanned Ronaldo's face for any sign of falsehood. The Santiago girl kept her cool, only giving her nose a small rub. Well, FYI, aside from Lily and all of us spoke with her, even my parents, she tossed the book into the coffee table. Turns out all of us had issues we didn't know or how to fix or unaware until last weekend. I mean, these problems were going on far long before this mess started. Lincoln is due to see Dr. Lopez at some point, but I don't know when. Friday? Lynn glanced at Ronaldo. What? Lincoln is supposed to see her on Friday. That's from what I heard Miss Loud say while she was on the phone. Lynn rested her head back against the sofa. Well, it's good news. The two didn't say much of anything for a few moments, as they watched Lily stood up and tried to open the photo book, growing a little frustrated of how hard it was for her to separate the pages. It hurts, you know. Ronnie Ann raised an eyebrow, shifting her attention to the older girl. What does? Having your old sibling being so afraid of you that you can't even be in the same room as them? That day we had our fight, Mom took him to the same hospital he was to get my teeth looked at. The jock looked at Ronnie Ann in the eyes. I had to wait until you were finished before I could go see him. Ronnie Ann then opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. She just realized what was going on might result in a snarky comment that would piss off Lynn Jr. For once, she did decide to hear her out, seeing that she wasn't going to voice her opinion. Lynn continued. Once you left, I saw all the damage we had done to him. Link couldn't even walk at the time because his pelvis hurt. Aside from Lily, I was the only one able to see him like that, and it made me want to cry like Lenny did. The jock had wiped away a small tear for me. I told Lincoln of how sorry I was, and if he hated me, I deserved it. You want to know what he did next? What? Ronaldo asked. The two heard a small whine and saw Lily imitating of what happened that day. She took one of her toys and pretended to take a look away from it. Then she looked it back in its general direction. She likely slapped herself with the toy, giving off crocodile tears. Ronaldo just looked confused while Lynn understood what she meant. Lynn picked up her baby sister, petting her on the head. The infant responded happily. Yes, Lily, he did. What did she say? Lincoln smacked me with his food tray when I got right up next to his bed. I was so sad that I ran out of the room in tears. Lynn stroked Lily's hairs. I thought that he really did hate me, but now I don't know what's worse, him hating me or being afraid of me. Either way, both sides sucked. She then looked at Ronnie Ann. Let me ask you something. How would you feel if you did what I did? Feel like crap and had someone berating it for you every day? The Hispanic girl looked down and thought. She didn't think of ever had to do anything like that to Lincoln, or even Roberto. Lord knows her mother would tan her to hide and send her off to a boarding school or some other place that's supposed to re-educate the Quinlets. Sure, she had hit Lincoln a few times, but that was only a teasing or a friendly way. Ronnie Ann bit her lower lip, shifting her weight a little. Lincoln was still in pretty bad shape with the first visit, but if she was still the cause of all that, not only her mother would end her, but unleash the ten-headed beast that was Lincoln's sisters. And given how easily Lynn cleaned her clock, she might as well call the funeral home and have them prep for a child burial. I hate myself for the rest of my life, and I wouldn't want to be reminded of my mistake that I've already have once my plate as it is. Lynn nodded. That's how I felt the way we were talking earlier. I have a really hard time trying to convince myself I'm not a bully, and you barking at me isn't going to help. Especially that myself and four of her sisters have to stay out of Lincoln's sight from school for God knows how long. Lily patted Lynn's arm, wanting to be let down. The 13-year-old gently placed her sister on the floor and then walked towards the little shopping cart. I'll be honest, sometimes I don't know what Lincoln saw you and they allowed him to pick up as his girlfriend. Ronnie Ann grew rather irritated at that remark. What do you mean by that? Ronnie, face it, you're a brutish, a bit of a punk, have an ego problem, and think she's the toughest person around. Most of the times I see you, and you've been doing this weird thing going on like you don't know to feel at ease or whatever in public. You always gotta act like you're the appendix predator or something. Maybe Link is into some domineering girls or whatever. I don't know. That's the only thing because you don't know me like Lincoln does. Ronnie Ann fought up to herself as she propped her arm on the back of the cushion, resting it on her hand. That's quite hypocritical coming from someone who knows and boasts about how great she is in sports, isn't afraid to punch someone's lights out. At least I have the skills to prove it. I'm even black belt in martial arts. Ronaldo gave a small smirk. Well, that doesn't mean anything considering how I kicked your butt in the same lunchroom. Lynn gave out a smirk of her own. Hate to burst your bubble, Rhonda, but I let you win. No, you didn't. Oh, really? How else could you take this down star athlete that takes Taekwondo? How else do you have the strength to literally send you off into the feet of your punch? I even know where to hit you, much force I had to apply to knock you out. Plus, I doubt you would solve this. If there was 15 feet between the pitcher mold and the batter around the ball is going at 90 miles per hour, how much force would I need to exert in order to score a home run? Ronnie Ann sat dumbfounded, shoulders slumped against the proceeded her mind and her ears what was heard. She wasn't going to even try to figure that one out, but now all it made sense. She got her ass kicked when Lynn pulled her to the side of the school and held her hostage, and the sports junkie literally stopped a fright form from occurring by the first to send her to the ground. Hell, she even barely recognized the punching before she got slammed by it. The tomboy relished the spotlight having to beaten Lynn, even further cementing her reputation as the school's resident tough girl. But now it seems meaningless knowing the adversary had held her back. Ronnie Ann, prideful in her fighting skills, thinking that they were second to none, and a strain stung her deeply, knowing that she didn't hold a candle to the amount of prowess that Lynn possessed. Why? She asked in a low whisper. You could have easily stopped me back then, but why didn't you? Like I said, I told my therapist, I wanted someone to punish me for what I did to my brother. I mean, I am already grounded, can't play sports or even wear my usual jersey, but it didn't feel enough for breaking his arm. Also, Dad did say he would belt us if we tried to dodge our grounding, but I'd rather get my face smashed onto the floor than getting butt welts. So thanks for that. Lynn dabbed Ronnie Ann in the shoulder. Ronnie Ann winced a bit before soothing the stricken body part. Thanks, I guess? But of course, Lynn frowned a little at the girl's uncertain tone. Hey, you knocked some pretty pearly whites loose, and you almost broke my arm, so that counts for something. Coming from you, Ronnie Ann shrugged. I guess it does. She lifted the ice pack on her head a little, giving the audible laugh and sigh as a cold spot started to warm. You should teach me how to punch like that. Lynn stifled a little. You? Hey, I gotta protect Lincoln from the likes of you or anyone else. I don't want every edge. I want every edge I can get. Can't do that if I'm getting slaughtered at the first punch. Ronnie Ann lightly protruded the bruise, giving a small wince. Yep, still hurts. Look, I'm never going to hurt my brother like that again. Lynn sighed. And I'm sorry for hitting you. But just don't say stuff like that then, okay? Not only you were insulting me, but you also offended my sisters. Noted. The Hispanic girl nervously shifted her gaze away from Lynn. So sorry for ticking you off. And one last thing, if you want me to train you, then you better bring a game, 'cause I won't be holding back. Ronnie Ann appeared to be a little hesitant, not wanting to back down. Lynn pressed a finger on the tomboy's bruise, and the 11-year-old shrieked in pain before slapping Lynn's hand away. Okay, I will, she glared, rubbing up her forehead to numb the only pain that was going on. So if you know that Lincoln's afraid of you, what are you guys gonna do about it? So far, we're just keeping out of his sight. Might be kind of hard though, seeing as Lola must have made him scared when she went to the bathroom today. That's funny, 'cause myself and Lincoln's other friends were doing the same thing. Lynn raised an eyebrow. What's that? Making sure he doesn't see or hear you. Lynn tapped her chin. Well, maybe since both of us are doing the same thing, why don't we make this a team effort? Ronnie Ann raised her hands up. Look, Loud, you aren't exactly the list of my people I'd like to work with. Not that I really care. We are doing this for Lincoln's sake. All you guys need to let us know where he is or where he's heading, and we'll just not go in that direction. I don't want to have any more fights between us. Lynn raised one of her hands before spitting into it. For Lincoln? Ronnie Ann stared at the outstretched appendage, slightly disgusted by the fact it was covered in Lynn's spit, but she couldn't deny that the jock raised a fair point. If all of them kept in contact, this would go by a week a lot easier. The 11-year-old spat into her own hand and grasped Lynn's firm grip. For Lincoln. For Winkin. Lily copied them, spitting into her own hand before touching theirs. Unfortunately, the both older girls bear to witness the instincts of an infant making a mess in her diaper. Ronnie Ann's eyes watered before covering her mouth and nose, trying to fight the urge to puke. Lynn covered her nose, giving a sight glare. Ah, Lily! The 15-year-old month-old let out a series of giggles before crawling away to find her mother.